Council meeting of Wednesday, May 8th, order. Please stand for the pledge of the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Scott.
Here.
York.
Here.
Sanders.
Here.
Nedrow.
Here.
Dumont.
Here.
Self.
Here.
Allen.
Here. Additions to business. Do we have any additions?
I have one for you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Let's see, the Memorial Subcommittee has asked me to add a discussion on disbursement of the currently collected contributions that were made towards the Veterans Memorial. In particular, for some amount of money to begin marketing for fundraising.
So we're going to put that under item M then?
I think they'd also like to know the village's attitude towards the formation of a 503C for that collection.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Approval of the agenda then. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
So
That was a motion by Dumont, second by Duff. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Correspondence and information. We do have a letter from Howell and Associates regarding the Veterans Memorial.
Which I think,
Yeah, we can put that under,
that's actually under update.
under discussion anyways. Yep, okay. Other than that, first, we'll move along to first call of the public. An opportunity for citizens to address council on agenda items only. Anybody interested? Okay, we'll open the first call, and please state your name, address, and please limit it to 5 minutes or less.
Hi, Christy Nedrow, 515 Laguna Court. I'm speaking about the backyard chickens. I and anybody I have asked or talked to, we don't think it's a good idea. We don't want to live next to hens, chickens. Hens start off by producing a lot of eggs, and after that, they produce less and less, which means people are going to want more and more hens. I also believe having hens in the village will bring in more coyotes, which I don't think anybody wants, more coyotes. I know we've had them in our front yard. Our lots are too small. Hens can be noisy and they can smell if they're not kept clean. And right now, people can't even pick up their dog waste in their yards, their neighbors' yards, or even in the parks. And I don't want to end up living next to somebody who can't keep their chicken coop clean. That would just be awful. And then where do you put the hen houses and fences? Our lots aren't big enough. The village has hard enough time enforcing some of our own ordinance that are already on the books. The blight, no more than 3 small domestic animals on a lot, storage of trailers, recreation vehicles, accessory structures, fences, parking on the bike path. These are just to name a few. Now, if you add chickens into it, that's even going to be a bigger mess. And you're going to end up pitting neighbor against neighbor, and I don't think that's what this village should be about. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Taylor Pichette, 758 Lucille. I'm here to support the backyard chickens. Do I think that our lots are small? Yes. Do I think that there should be an opportunity for people to, have them and safely take care of them and legally obtain them? Yes. I'm just kind of asking for like appropriate setbacks. If your lot is too small, your lot is too small, but there are some people who do have appropriate lot sizes for it. It may not be for everybody, but if well maintained, chickens don't necessarily have to be stinky or smelly or loud. And I just kind of wanted the opportunity to, teach my children about you know, taking care of animals and where food comes from, and, you know, maybe they can teach that to children at their school. Just a unique way to kind of educate my children and the next generation. Chickens do get older, and, you know, if that's the case, then you're gonna have to take care of that by means of getting rid of the chickens if you only want them for their eggs. You know, you don't just have 30 chickens, and that's not what I'm asking for. Ferndale has 3 to 4 chickens. The Warren has 3 to 4 chickens that you're allowed to have, and I feel like that's an appropriate amount. I'm not saying a ton of chickens, but an appropriate amount with rules and regulations that people who are willing to legally go about this can follow. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll close the first call of public and move along to consideration of approving the following consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Dumont, second by Duff. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
York.
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Medrow.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Malik.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. We don't have board appointments. So we'll move along to presentations. And our police department has numerous tonight, so it's a nice night to be able to do this.
It is nice, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to recognize the officers here. First thing I'd like to do is recommend to hire Reserve Officer Ann Grunwald as a part-time Marine Patrol officer. Officer Grunwald's been with us for a year, and she's just now ready to complete her Marine Patrol Academy from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. If you join me up here real quick. She's been a valuable asset to our department over the last year, and I think this is a really nice transition to be able to get her out to work on the water in the Marine Patrol.
Mr. President, I'd like to make that motion.
Second. Motion by Duff, second by Malik, I guess. Got you by a second there, Ed. To hire Ann Grunwald as our reserve officer. Any discussion?
Yeah, who's going to train you?
There's a couple other officers that have some experience, so there's some that will train there, and then Steve Grunwald will do some as well, so Officer Grunwald will train as well.
Okay.
Okay, motion on the table, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Great, thank you, Ann.
And I think we're going to have, do we have her signed in, or sworn in tonight, or no? No, okay, we'll just have you do that. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, and thanks for stepping up.
The next thing we're going to move on to is a life-saving award for Officer A.J. Suchko. I got a lot of stuff up here I'm going to have to dig through. So, Officer Suchko, it's my honor to present to you the Wolverine Lake Police Department Life-Saving Award. On March 28, 2019, you were dispatched to a welfare check at a residence on Del Monte Street in the village of Wolverine Lake. Through your actions, you were able to determine that the homeowner was inside and in need of immediate assistance. You were able to gain entry and found the resident on the floor in the bathroom suffering from what was later to be determined as a stroke. Further investigation revealed that he had been on the floor for several days, and had it not been for your swift and thorough actions, he would have died within hours. And your activities reflected the highest standard of conduct for a law enforcement officer and brought great honor to yourself and the Wolverine Lake Police Department. It's my privilege to award you with your second Wolverine Lake Life Saving Award. Thank you very much, sir. I might have one or two here. I believe, there it is. And your wife is here tonight, Danielle.
Yes, she is.
Thank you for being here. It was a surprise to him. He didn't know she was coming. I'll give you this. And thank you very much. Just appreciate it. And you might as well not go anywhere.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys gather around me here?
Any of the rest of the department?
I might as well do the rest of the department while we're here.
Stand up here.
Just, you can, wherever you want. As long as you guys are all here. I'd rather have you guys, yeah, right up behind me here. Back further, back, kind of back behind me here. Your camera, you need to be on camera for this one. Now, as a chief, there are many occasions that your officers' actions make you feel very proud. When they perform outstanding police work that ends in the conviction of a criminal, perform action that saves a life, or receive a letter from a citizen thanking the department for going above and beyond what would normally be required as an officer. But I received a letter recently that is one of the highlights of my 34-year career. Over my years in law enforcement, I've never met such a caring and considerate, selfless group of individuals who, by banding together, can move mountains. By your noble and considerate actions, you have changed many lives, from your Special Olympic polar plunge to the torch run to the pigs for wigs and other daily kind gestures. You have raised over $30,000 for these organizations in the last 18 months. I just want to say thank you and well done. I am incredibly proud of all of you. When I call your name, I'll have you come forward and pick up your letter of commendation. And I'll start out with Officer Kristen Beaudry. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Officer Brett Crick. Thank you very much. Officer Ryan Crowell. Officer Brian Dennis. Officer Ann Grunwald. Officer Steve Grunwald. Sergeant John Morosco. And Officer A.J. Setsko. Thank you. I have one more for our Deputy Chief, John Wachowski, but he was not able to be with us tonight. He was, without going into too much detail, taken to the hospital this afternoon by ambulance. He's going to be fine. He'll be back to work tomorrow, but our thoughts and prayers are with him, and we wish him well. So that's it. I do want to share something. I know that I believe the council received a copy. Did you receive the copy of the letter from the little girl?
Yes, sure did.
The officers with their Pigs for Wigs raising funds were able to help a young lady named Kayleen who was diagnosed with alopecia, which she loses her hair. And so the officers were able to get enough money to fund a wig for her, and she is able to now go to school without being teased and allow her cousin to braid her hair. It was just a very nice letter, and we appreciate it, but that just goes to show that these guys go above and beyond, and I'm incredibly proud of them, and we do make a difference in the neighborhoods. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for allowing me this time to be able to identify these fine young men and women, and looking forward to many, many more years, with the exception of AJ, unfortunately. Officer Setsko will be leaving us at the end of June, right after Tiki Night actually, so July 3rd. He and his wife Danielle will be moving to another state, and we wish them very well. So thank you guys very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good work. It's going to be much better to watch it. I will figure out what welcome aboard.
Congratulations to see you on the water. Take care. Thank you. How you doing? Yeah, good.
You know, that's absolutely one of the better things we have to do up here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable to be able to do that, so. Now we move on to something even more enjoyable, right? Engineer from Howell and Associates. updates from Michelle.
Good evening. Mike made his apologies. He had a personal thing come up, so he could not be here. However, hopefully he got me all set up for you. Greenaway Drain, we have done some plans. We are working with MDEQ, actually, excuse me, Eagle now. They changed their name, so always hard getting used to the new name changes. We are working to meet their requirements on our plan in order to get the proper stormwater storage to meet their requirements in the Greenaway Drain. We expect to have that in the next couple weeks, but it is always fun working with their timeline. So, are there any questions regarding the Greenaway Drain?
I have one for you, Michelle.
Yeah.
And I talked with Mike on this. Is there any coordination that might have been done? I believe that was a Chapter 20 drain at one point in time, was it not?
Well, I believe back when it was originally done as a Chapter 20, I don't know how they're going to classify it this time because that was an entirely different. That was working with the drain itself and not outside of the drain and just allowing discharge into the drain. So I believe they're going to be classifying it differently this time.
Okay, well, the question or the conversation Mr. Powell and I had was whether or not you're going to reach into Oakland County and into our wonderful neighbor where 3 of those culverts are coming in off the Pontiac Trail.
The vortex chambers.
The vortex chambers, relative to doing something to slow down on their end of the game some of that stormwater coming at us.
That is a very good point. I will remind Mike about that, and we will see what we can do to try to team up with them on that side of it as well.
Okay, and I know the water board had reached out to see whether or not he can make a meeting. If you could coordinate that?
Yeah,
because we
absolutely.
have people who are attending functions on those issues. Great, appreciate it, thanks.
Any other questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to the paving updates. We have had some beautiful spring rain, which has caused the paving to be going at a slower pace than we had hoped. They are doing the finishing course on Adelaide and Amenia. We expect that to be done by the end of this week. Worst case scenario with the pending rain, beginning of next week. And then they are going to be moving on to Shankin, Solano, and Ventura. For that, once they complete that, that will probably take them a few weeks. Once they complete that, they'll be moving on to Angola, and then we will be looking for the north side of the lake roads to be done after the 4th of July. So that is the current time frame. ASI has been doing a great job out there. They're staying pretty close to the plans. They call us when there are issues, but so far there have not been any. So we hope that the rain will let up so we can get going on this paving and get some better roads. Are there any questions regarding paving?
Guess not.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the Veterans Memorial. At the last meeting, we were requested to do some soil borings in the 2 areas that council has been looking to put a war memorial, Veterans Memorial at. We did those borings, and we also did some surveying work out there to determine best case scenario. Both sites had pros and cons. Site number 1, which was a little bit further from the parking area but closer to the road, that was a much higher and drier area. We expect that to be a lot easier to keep stormwater rolling away from. So that was the benefit of that. However, there is always the easy way of doing a leaching basin and allowing water to go into a leach basin and perking it away because the village has such nice sand. So if you chose one, we would, location number 1, we're high and dry, so we don't have to deal with stormwater issues. However, there were some not as good quality of soils in location 1 as in location 2. Like location 2 had much better soils. The blow counts were approximately double on location number 2 as 1. So on that location, you're gonna have a little bit more soil boring capacity issues, which you're going to have to just spread the footing a little bit larger, so your footing size is gonna be higher than the other. That being said, neither of the locations are poor locations, so we don't want it to be an engineering. There is nothing beneficial to one side over the other engineering. They both have their problems, little problems. Both of them can be overcome with engineering, so it should be a council recommendation.
Okay.
Okay. If you don't mind, Mr. President, I would like to, given there was a deferral on this decision, based upon soil borings, and it sounds like either or would be acceptable. Just reminding council a little bit that the subcommittee for the memorial had overwhelmingly, on voice vote, chosen site number 1 as its preference. And if I could have council accept a motion to accept that, that is to say, site number 1 is the preferred motion, so we can, preferred site, so that the War Memorial Committee can continue to move forward. It would be appreciated. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I have a question. When I looked at the soil borings, neither one of them indicated a high water table.
It was not a water table that was the concern.
Oh, you're talking about standing water?
Yeah, the location 1 is at a low point, so there's a drainage district around. The water does tend to pond in that area, especially in the spring. So,
Yep, just clarification.
Okay, any other discussion?
Oh, on the motion?
Yeah.
Yes, I have 2. I've made my point about one or the other. The only thing I hope people realize, that location number 1 is only 20 feet off the easement of Glengarry. And if you stand there, the traffic noise is quite annoying. So I don't understand why, and I've made this comment before, that we're more concerned about traffic cars going by than residents, and plus the noise. I mean, something like this, I would think would be something that you'd want to be semi-serene and all that, but, you know, whatever council decides on is fine, but I still think if you don't like location 2, and the other thing, I remember what a big fuss was made at the beginning about the equipment, the exercise equipment. And when you look at the rendering, what's right in the middle of it, not 40 feet from it, there's the exercise equipment. I really don't think that's the best location, but council's pleasure.
Well, on one issue, Edward, let me address the issue of its proximity to the road. There has been a second rendition that has included a memorial walk, so that when people come into the area and they want to leave wreaths and other items, which tends to be something most people want to do, let's say on a special occasion, Memorial Day or whenever, 4th of July. We have also asked that the entire memorial be moved 10 feet further south to keep it a little bit away from the road. It's going to reduce cost of pavers, and it'll reduce some of the noise. I don't expect that that particular location is going to be a 24-hour-a-day use, high traffic. I walk by it every morning, somewhere between 6:30 and 8:30, and yes, there is road noise. The road noise isn't any much different behind the parking lot than it is there when you walk. So I guess there's no other comments that we need to be made.
I have a question. Site 2, how far much south is that from where Site 1 would be?
Well, it's behind the parking lot,
Okay.
for one thing. It does gather water. There is water standing there, but again, that's mainly in the winter. In order to see it from the road, which we think is the biggest highlight, you know, you're going to be looking at a memorial that we've had good comments on the fact that it's a circular sitting memorial. Right. It'll have LEDs underneath, and of course, the flags will be lit up. So I think it'll be a...
How about, is it going to turn into a road distraction?
I don't believe so.
You know, I mean, it is close to the road. You do have a lot of traffic there.
Well, close in proximity, Bob, you're probably talking 45 feet from the new center to the edge of the road. So,
Yeah, no, I don't know, and that's,
All items
I don't
taken
know if
into
the chief has any
consideration.
comment in any way?
I don't think it's gonna be a distraction, as far as, the road goes, as far as traveling goes. Obviously, it's gonna, the gawkers are gonna be going.
They carried around in
Yeah,
your
I guess-
pocket there, kid.
Yeah. Gawkers are gonna be looking at it, obviously, as it's being built, once it gets there, and I don't foresee that to be an issue.
Well, I don't have preference one way or the other. That we get it is the main thing, but I just want to ask those questions in advance.
Sure, appreciate it.
I'll say, I don't have a preference either. However, that board, if I understand correct, John, voted unanimously for this location closest to Glengarry, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So all of our volunteers spend a lot of time, a lot more time than we do at this board, thinking about where to put that, in this case, that Veterans Memorial. And if we don't support what they want, if they tell us this is where we want it, and we say, no, put it over here, it disrespects those volunteers, and they're no longer encouraged to volunteer. It takes the enthusiasm out of the board, and then the board will become numb.
And I always like to remind the board that these are tax-paying residents, these are adults. We have extensive discussions on these items. We know the approximate cost of doing that. We've interviewed contractors. We know that what we're going to go after is a higher cost construction because we're going to be using selected contractors to put in a memorial that will last 30 years. As one of the contractors said, you don't want to be playing around with, this was his distractive comment, I don't necessarily agree with, but he said you need something at a higher level than somebody who puts cement down for a driveway, because you're going to have an item that's going to be sitting there for hopefully 30 to 35 years. Yeah. And you want to make sure that you've got a good maintenance fund, which is part of what we're going to raise, which is why I'll get into that question a little bit later.
I just have one comment in terms of your comment, Dave. You're also talking about the same board that the last iteration of this, they wanted to rip out public property and move it, and that was the only option that they had. So in terms of, they're always looking at something that is non-flexible in my eyes.
Well, let me make a comment on that because you're behind the times. A, there's a new chair. B, 3 members have resigned and been replaced by 2 other members. So it's not the same board. And this board started from a position of 3 years of planning, of difficulty to get to the point. I think I, as well as these new boards, have taken this position of going nowhere, and within 2.5 months have illustrations, renditions. So just wanted to make sure that when changes are needed, boards do make those changes, Mark.
Sure. I just
So
don't like,
don't leave the impression
I
that-
just don't like the comment that we're discouraging them in terms of, we went, I don't remember even how long the last iteration of this thing was, but again, they were very unwilling to work with us in terms of a different location last time.
It's only the same board in title, not in membership.
Yeah.
That's the
Just
point
saying.
I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you,
Well, I think we're
David, I
getting a little off
appreciate
track.
that.
Was there a second on his motion?
I think so.
Yep, Mr. York did.
All right, thank you.
So that was a motion by Scott, second by York, to pick spot number 1, I guess, for the Veterans Memorial. We've had enough discussion, I think. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Do you need a vote? Voice vote?
Do we need a roll call? I don't think so.
No, you're not spending any money.
No. So was there any dissensions on that?
No.
No? Okay. Motion passes.
There's no public hearings.
That's it?
No public hearings.
Yep, no public hearing, so we're finally on new business item A.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Every stand up the hill.
Now, before we get completely done from this, are we going to get the exact location with all the adjustments and put a flag up there?
Not until the concrete is poured and the memorial is put up.
I would
Well,
think-
my understanding from the beginning, and I don't know which committee you're talking about is the village was gonna buy a flag, put it in, and have a sign that what's gonna go there, and light it.
Well, the sign is still in planning, but that's up to the village. If the village want to implant a flag and then move the flag, that's one thing. I would suggest that once we have the engineering drawings done, the site finalized, if you want to put a flag in adjacent to that, that would make more sense. But you're going to have contracting, you're going to have dirt mounds moved. I mean, you're going to have excavation work, so that's up to the council. But it would seem to me we're pretty much on track to get, hopefully, because of fundraising activities, we would like to have whatever necessary dirt movement and mounding and preparation for cement pour to be done somewhere around July 3rd.
Well, this is gonna be, basically, we're gonna be discussing this type of stuff on item M, right?
Yes.
Yeah, let's move through it and then we
Yeah.
can discuss it then.
I can agree. I'd hate to see us spend money putting in a sign and a pole at this point and possibly have to move it because of something that goes on with the construction. So, you know, my feeling is hold with that until we have an exact spot and they start.
Well, Mark made a motion, if you'll remember, after that original plan was in place, to start back
Yes.
at zero. So all that original planning
It was at 0.
was swept aside.
Yeah, we were at 0,
Okay.
I guess.
Well, let's discuss it on item M.
You got
All
it?
right.
Okay, moving on to discussion of what vacating Wakedo. So we've got a letter from
You need a
Baker
map?
Noloski,
So I sure was
which basically
Edward, you wanna-
walks us through some of the scenarios and some of the history, I guess, behind those roads.
A nice summary, by
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
very
pass 'em-
nice.
I have a aerial of it. It was a little
Oh, that would
confusing
be
to me.
helpful.
Yeah. It's an aerial of Wakedo and the square in there that basically identifies the tennis court. So wait a minute, you gotta bring one back my way, guys.
You just have to understand, this that whole thing rubbed me really wrong. the first time around.
No, we're all set. We're gonna share it.
The other thing
So this is where the, I couldn't quite remember where the two driveways are that she's talking about.
I'm quite interested.
Alrighty, so
So,
Leanne, you want to go forward with it?
sure. Yes, our office extensively reviewed how the properties came to be and what exists there now. And basically, it's the area between Brisbane and, what is that one? I don't see the name.
Terry, I believe.
No, Roselawn.
Yeah, Terry, it's not shown on here.
Terry, okay, yeah, and then that borders on the property where we're talking about for the War Memorial, so the fitness area as well. And yes, where the tennis courts exist. And that section of road there, I believe, I'm not sure how many other dirt road sections, which is actually more of the crushed asphalt there, but that is not a paved section of road. So I think Mr. Malik had brought up that as a concern as far as maintenance and what have you goes.
Well, just to bring back, my original thought was, we have those four short streets that are unpaved in the village, and I believe there's one over off of,
Dunreath and,
yeah. And it's just senseless to have to maintain that. You know, when there's park on both sides. The first two streets, from Brisbane heading east, the first two streets are used because there are homes with driveways. But then the next two are just vacant land.
Right.
That, you know, we're paying to maintain. Roads that aren't really needed, when it can be, you know, plowed over, grassed over, and become all to the park.
Well,
That
some
would
of
be
it
my thought.
Does provide as
Access to.
Driveways.
Engineer Powell, also just for
Right.
cross north-south access as well. But
Right.
if
So
you were
it
to
would be these numbers.
vacate the entire portion, and first off, I should start by saying that road can be legally vacated, even though it was part of the
Huron.
park property that was, yes, that was deeded, well, sold actually. The village purchased it from the Huron Clinton Metropolitan Authority.
Right.
And first off, as part of that sale, the property is limited to use as parkland or for governmental purposes. So basically,
Roads are park.
Park, correct. Well, and then the roads, it also specifically excluded in that sale from the restriction of parkland or governmental purposes, the roads that were in existence, which would be Wakedo. So in essence, that allows vacation, because upon vacation of a road, typically half goes to each abutting property. So there's a portion where the abutting property is also park property, which would be village property. So that could all be entirely become park property. Then there's other sections where the roads are, or the driveways,
Right.
that's a little bit more, poses more problems. That portion, half of that would go to those property owners, and that would be appropriate. They wouldn't have to limit that to
So can we make a
government use.
motion just to vacate the area that we
Well,
control?
there was a couple options.
Yeah, there's two options there,
Right.
and I would, if you haven't looked at it, I personally, I live in the area and I run through that trail, daily almost, and it is a big, just from my own personal observation, there is a big swath of land there that if you do vacate the portion between Roselawn and Terry, that would give you a solid chunk of land to do something with.
Right.
So,
So I
Well,
make,
yeah, so
Essentially, it kind of extends the park through there a
Can I-
little bit.
Yeah.
That was option one, right?
can I make the motion?
option one, and
That was
then,
my
Makes sense.
understanding,
yes.
Yeah.
Option two.
because that makes it a dead end there.
Option two is
Well, it'll
also a
just be gone.
possibility, though, that you could add
This-
the
this'll-
portion across
That, I
from
be
I
filled in.
like the
the
option too.
Yeah,
tennis
True.
court.
Yeah.
And then that, because there's a little chunk of land as well, there, abutting it.
Even though it does
Village
make a
parkland.
dead end portion of Wakedo right there. But you wouldn't have, I mean, it
Yeah, right
kind
there.
of extends. Actually, my thought was, you might be able to use that portion of Wakedo to use for a parking lot for the tennis courts, if we vacated. I mean, the base is essentially there anyways,
Yeah.
right?
You're talking about option two?
Yeah.
You're talking about the parcel
here.
across from the parking lot? I mean, from the tennis court?
Yeah, 'cause you
Right
see where
in
there's
here,
a little
right?
The
outline.
roadway adjacent to the
Correct,
tennis
yep.
courts.
Okay.
That's also
Yeah.
village
Okay.
park property
Gotcha.
right there, just that
So
small
if we,
lot.
This is
if
actually
we
not part of
vacated
this.
like
Now,
half of that portion, we
affect
could utilize
anybody's driveway?
Not
half of
with
that,
one.
or a
Not with
portion of
this.
that to the north side of the tennis courts for parking. And we've always wanted to try to get some parking around the park
Perfect.
tennis courts, but
Okay.
This is
Can I
right
make a
here.
motion?
Yeah.
Option two.
Okay, and this is what we're closing from here to here?
I think we're good, right? I mean, everybody's in agreement that that's basically what we've been talking about. Mr. President,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion.
okay, I guess
Wait,
So
oh,
a portion
we can
of
get
going up to
discussion there.
Claire.
Yeah, we can have
we could have
discussion
this,
then.
we're gonna have more discussion, I'm sure.
I'd like to make a motion to do option two. This would involve vacating of Wakedo abutting parcel 17-22-303-012, which is on the opposite side of Wakedo
308.
from the existing tennis courts.
I think you said 303, you said 17-22-303, I think it's 308.
Yeah.
On mine, it's
It says 303 on the printout,
Yeah, on the.
but on the picture, it
I'm
shows
reading,
Oh,
308.
okay,
I'm
so
reading on the
that's probably
legal
right.
summary,
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
303.
Oh, yeah.
So.
So it should be 308, correct? Yeah.
308.
Yeah.
I'll correct that in a second.
Yeah.
303.
Oh, 303, oh.
It's 30.
So it's a typo.
Oh,
in
yeah,
there.
Typo.
okay, typos.
So,
Did you second that, Ed?
Pardon?
Did you say support?
Yes.
Okay, if not, I was gonna second it, that's why.
No, we were talking about the 3 and the 8.
We got a motion by Duff, second by Sinkowitz. I'm sure there's gonna be some discussion.
how long have we been talking about this? It's
Okay, what,
Several
I
years.
guess
several years.
my question would be, what's involved cost-wise in vacating this? Is it just
Plant
a
some
matter of-
grass.
Just
Stop.
some legal
Legal
work,
yeah,
you know,
work?
resolution
Okay.
and.
Stop maintaining it as
Well, I
a
personally have
road.
never vacated a road, so
Do we have to put
just
up
curious.
In,
we'll have to put up signage and there's any issues with?
Yeah, you probably would want to, to make
make,
Notice.
known,
Wouldn't
or,
we need
you know, I'm
DPW to
thinking.
make it clear that it's a, you know,
You
to
would
make it
wanna
look like a parking lot? I don't,
perhaps
I
clear that
honestly
out.
haven't been
Clear
there.
that
Probably
out
either
and-
put a berm or gate across it,
across or something
you know,
like that.
and, you know, road vacated, and then
Well,
commence to start
dead end
planting grass.
roadside down
Yeah,
on,
dead end, I mean, right in the
down on
middle.
Wakito and what it was, would be Woodlawn, I guess, right?
And I don't know if you'd want to, you know, plant grass in there anyway as well to make it that full
Yeah.
park area, so.
Okay.
So nothing significantly, you know, some legal costs yet.
In the discussion here, is it something we'd like in this motion to also have the engineering department, our engineer, look into turning this section in for parking? Or do you want a separate motion to do that?
Portion of it down the road, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to rush into that.
Okay,
Let's get it vacated
Yeah.
at this point, and then
fine.
maybe down the road we look at it.
Make plans.
Yeah.
for it,
Do you have a ballpark of what legal services would cost? Any?
Most of it's just title work and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, $100.
Yeah, and you know, draft a resolution.
I don't know what title companies you use.
So the villages, we vacated quite a few little portions of land, so yeah, title work, the survey, and then, yeah, just bring it before council. for approval.
We vacate, that's gonna cut down our minor road funds big
So I
time,
wouldn't
right?
think more than 2 hours on our legal, and I don't know with, as far as engineering goes.
I think this. and
Just so
then
we're
this,
clear, right?
And then a dead end.
Be the
there
easternmost
with a half
section.
So it's from Terry
Okay,
to,
from Terry to halfway
Halfway
between
and-
Woodlawn and.
right to the end of the square
Rose Lawn.
across to the tennis court, the
Yeah.
the
Middle
south
of the
end.
block between
Yep.
Rose Lawn and
Or
Woodlawn.
that's west, sorry,
Half
Right.
of that.
right?
Right
House has
there.
a driveway right there?
Yes.
So we essentially,
From blocking it from here to here. Yeah.
All the
essentially,
driveways.
we're looking at vacating about half of Woodlawn.
Yeah.
Half of Wakito, right?
Right.
Perfect. The eastern half.
Yeah.
The
Right?
driveways exist on,
Causing
The driveways still exist off.
on the other.
The other portion is still
portions.
intact.
And then you'll still have one,
Two four-wheelers there.
Dog at the county.
you'll have one.
Yeah, in case of a fire or
through
something like
street.
that, they need to know what roads are available. Once we do that, we gotta make sure that
Okay.
everybody
Okay.
knows
Just
that.
Yeah.
a point of clarification or information, does he have to specify in the motion that you're stating what parcel? Like he just said option 2, is that?
No, I stated the
He
parcel.
stated the parcel.
No, I mean even the other one, I'm saying the first one as well,
Oh,
that we're vacating that and that.
yeah, let's
That's
go
what I
back
was
and
wondering.
amend
Just
that.
so it's in the minutes that.
Oh, 304-17
Both
and
parcels
22
are
septic
being
septic,
vacated.
yeah.
Which,
So 17,
17 also?
Yeah.
304,
As long as long as we got those right.
and,
Did you,
right?
did you
So
mention
it'd be
Yes.
this parcel.
You mentioned the one.
Right here.
Well, essentially, as far as the motion is concerned, it would be the
17,
eastern half of
It isn't
Wakito,
shown in here.
Yeah, I know.
essentially. Right?
Yes.
So that's this
I
one.
don't know
Do you
if
agree with that,
that's
Ed?
Fully one half, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Well, it's close to half. yeah.
17-22-303-22, correct?
304.
304, sorry.
304,
Yes.
22.
022.
Right?
Yes.
Just those two.
Or
From the
perhaps-
east, from Terry Street, at 022 to the west side
Of
of.
12.
We could say
012.
as referenced
As
in the
referenced.
attorney,
Yep.
Perfect. That's better.
the
There
attorney's
we go.
memo dated May 1, 2019.
There you go.
that is,
Perfect.
Alternative option 2.
Alternate option,
Okay.
option 2 on page 3 of that memo.
Do we want to also make note that the number is wrong in the
Yes.
writing?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's some questions later.
With the correction that in option 2, the parcels should be 1722-308-012 rather than 303.
Correct, thank you.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Roll call.
Okay, roll call vote then.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Malik.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes,
York.
Yes.
Wow. It's been a long time coming.
yeah.
I feel good about that.
That was one of the goals.
Yes. Just
And you should.
Okay. Here, now we get into the exciting stuff. Resolution approving the renewal of video service local franchise agreement between the Village of Overland Lake and Michigan Bell Telephone Company, which is AT&T Michigan.
You can go over that, we've reviewed those.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is a pretty standard agreement. There's already one in place.
and it's up for a renewal, and again, it's regulated by state law.
Has anything changed on it?
No.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we adopt the renewal of the video service local franchise agreement between the Village of Wolverine Lake and Michigan Bell Telephone.
Second.
And then we also had the motion to authorize village president to sign on behalf of that agreement. Is that correct,
Yes.
Leanne?
Yeah.
So if that's friendly?
Yep, friendly.
Okay. And
There's a
then,
motion by Duff, second by
Sinkwitz.
Sinkwitz. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries on that one.
Is that a roll call though?
Not spending money. It's just authorizing a resolution, correct? Okay, moving on to the next resolution, right-of-way permit extension between the Village of Wolverine Lake and Michigan Bell Telephone Company.
and that one, it
This is a
goes-
5-year term.
Correct, yep, it goes along with, it's not the exact same term, but it basically gives them the right to work in the right-of-ways for
Right.
whatever digging. And just to point out, we did suggest that Michael just include this as we were doing the franchise agreement, which did need approval by you, but pursuant to your ordinance,
Mhm.
Michael is authorized
To sign on this one.
to sign for the Metro Act,
Right.
as long as they're acceptable. And the only thing that is needed in this case is just an updated insurance certificate
Right.
from them. So we're going to wait
Mr.
for
President,
that.
I'd like to make a motion that we extend the Metro Act right-of-way permit extension.
Second?
Okay, motion by Duff, second by Malik. That way, no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, recommendation of planning commission to decide if council wants to plan commission to create an ordinance regarding backyard chickens. We did have a discussion on planning on this. The guy that spoke earlier came and he was in favor of chickens, so he really brought it to the planning commission, and we had some discussion on that, and it is actually it's not a zoning ordinance, so therefore planning couldn't act on it. And
Mr. President, a number of years ago, when I was on council last time, this came up.
2 years ago.
Was it two? I thought,
Yeah.
well, it was once before
Yeah.
that, too, also.
Yeah, it came up a
So,
couple times.
this would be like the third time around, and twice it's been, put to rest that most people aren't interested. But this is a new council, and
Can I
I have a
ask-
comment.
Yeah.
I know people that raise chickens in their backyard, and their biggest problem is rodents. Because all the food kind of gets
Mhm.
thrown around, their droppings and the hay and all that kind of stuff. That, I just don't think in a community like this that we should have raising farm animals in the backyard.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my thought too.
Going back to history, wasn't there a special meeting or methodology that was put in for certain kinds of animals? I think there were monkeys or
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
that
yeah, we had a.
Well, it's
special permit
exotic.
for
That's
monkeys.
exotic.
Exotic, okay, so that's a
But that
specific.
clearly states, well, the exotic animals are pets. These aren't pets, these are farm animals.
Understand,
So, I
understand,
mean, it's a definite clarification of the two.
yeah. My,
Yeah, exactly, it excludes it.
Well, our planning consultant ended up going through and she got some sample ordinances and Ferndale, Berkeley, and
Royal Oak.
actually Commerce
and Royal Oak, my son.
There's
happens to
about
live on-
50% of
yeah,
communities that
and,
allow for 50% don't. So it's a wash, and it depends on what we want to do as a community, I guess. That's what it boils down to. Right? Sounds like,
I have a better idea, let them take a swan home.
You can't touch the swan.
I know.
Do we need a motion, or are we just not going to address it?
If there's no action, then
I just think that we just need consensus on council whether or not we would want to require or allow chickens. So it kind of sounds like to me that things
I
haven't
mean,
changed and that we still believe
Yeah.
that we're not a community that would like to allow chickens at this point, so. I believe that's consensus, so.
In the past, like I said, I know we've had the planning commission look into it, and it was denied. And my motion is, if we need a motion, to deny it at this point also.
I think we've got that consensus.
Yeah.
I don't think we really need the motion, but I guess we could, but I don't think we really have to, so. With that, move on to the next agenda item. Recommendation from the Water Management Board for council to explore in coordination with manufacturers of transponders to purchase and install submersible depth transmitters at a cost not to exceed $1,000.
So I have a couple of concerns in terms of this one. So is it just one transducer that they're putting in? Is it one location?
Well, yeah, let me make some quick background for you.
Yeah,
this is John's baby, so he can.
This is John's baby, it is.
Another one.
You'll, well, I always bring in actions, that keeps us in conversations. This really came before the Water Board. As you know, we have two steering committees, now subcommittees, one studying the canals and the question of muck buildup and et cetera. The second, which is where Mike Hurst just went to, the west side to the Michigan Lakes and Michigan Lakes Association meeting, and erosion and actually lake level controls were part of those discussions. You'll see that in our next water board meeting. What you're looking at here is something that we on the water board have been looking at, and we're going to bring this up to date. I've been in conversation basically with Andy about this. As you might remember, Cliff, who was our past chair on the water board, is a hydrogeologist. So for all of those that don't know what this chart's about, this is a chart that is based upon precipitation correlated to the height and changes in water level. And in order to get a good feel of where I'm going to go with this real quickly, you're looking at basically since 2012 up to 2017. And the feeling is that we tend in the spring not to keep the accumulation of water more in check than we do. And some of that can be seen. Let's just take the very last graph in there, which is 2017. You will see that the spring line, which happens to be coming in from February in through July, is above or right at the point of a 918.5, which, according to the study, was the time that we're carrying too much water. And you see that we go into that pinnacle every spring. If you go back until we put the management in place, it was even worse. So coming into 2008-9, there were studies done. 2012 and 13, we instituted, with the acceptance of council, a water management plan. We've drifted away from that. So there's two things that the Water Management Board is looking at right now, and we'll be meeting with the DEQ on this, we would hope within the next month or so, among another long list of things that we're going to meet with Andy Hartz and Susan on. But the real question was, after talking to Andy, how does Oakland County control them? They've got 23 lakes. What makes most sense? And back to your question, Mark, which is a great question. What equipment's available out there? And what equipment is available out there? And the Water Board has talked about twofold things here. Transducers, which is what you have in your packet, is basically the sending equipment would be at the dam, and then the lines that attach to them would be in the water.
So is it only at the dam?
Well, at this point in time, that's the question, and I'm going to make a motion or ask for a deferral on this for this reason. I believe we have a meeting close to being set up through Mr. Nash to, now remember, they don't control our dam level, and they won't have access to make any decisions, but to sit down with the head gentleman who controls the dam through Oakland County. What I do understand that they all make their controls through transmissions, so that they basically can sit in Pontiac and they can determine what's going on in their lakes and then react accordingly. I do know in talking to them that the urban legend, and I think I've said this to council before, that we cannot let out a lot of water for fear of having an impact on commerce is not true. And we want to get that in writing. But I mean, verbally, what was said to me, you go 5 inches and you can dump it and we don't have to worry about it, okay? And if you do a correlation between what's going on here and what you'll see published in the spinal column, is you'll see that commerce stays pretty level. And the reason is because of the amount of fall that comes through commerce, where they're going into up the Huron River, they tend to have a better control process. And so from their standpoint, the verbal was, don't worry about it. If you've got to get rid of water fast, get rid of it, okay? So here's what I'd like to do is, the deeper I got into conversation with Cliff by emails over the last 2 days, he indicated that he was more than willing, after we meet with Oakland County, to give us a better idea how many we might need. He was thinking 2 versus just 1.
So, to interrupt a little bit,
Sure.
my concern is in areas across the lake. I've seen it personally in terms of when Andy opens the gates up, the gates are losing a certain amount, and where we're at, the water just disappears. So there's you know, it's one of those things that's kind of weird.
Time for it to equalize out.
Yeah, the equalization isn't really uniform. Yeah, and that's where my concern is. So if we're going to measure stuff, are we going to measure stuff around the lake, or are we just going to use what we're doing now, which has issues?
And as I said, I think I'd ask council to table this until we can come back, hopefully within the next month, to answer those questions, because we're not unique to that. When you think of the canals in Commerce Lake and the fact that Commerce is a split lake, they have the same thing. They have their dam coming off of Benstein, but their intake's coming in from 2 different sources. Well, maybe 3 if you include us. So, yeah, we need to do more drill down, Mark, and thanks for asking the question. I appreciate it. So if you would,
Why can't we just use the information that's on the dam like we've been doing for what the water level is, instead of getting this? Because I think there's another, I don't know why this is such a technical confusion here. If the wind is blowing from the south, there's going to be more wind at the north end of the water at the north end of the lake. So I don't know how you're going to juggle it. And if the Greenway drain is flowing, you know that end is going to be going. It's been like this for the lake for at least, for sure, I know 45 years. And if you get a heavy rain, it takes a while for it to leave.
Sure.
Now, I think most people who've been on council for a while were always under the impression that we had to minimize or have a control on how much water we let out. We have too much water, let it out, get it down to our height, and go for it. But, you know, Great Lakes are at a 30-year high. I think they're 18 inches. So don't be surprised if Wolverine Lake is high and you might have water in your basement.
Well, plus, the reaction on this type of equipment is, if it's the electronics, and you said Oakland County's got it in 20 or 30 lakes, is it the response, this thing reads the waters up, boom, it goes into effect.
It's a lifetime.
And then you're affected on the opposite end. Like Ed said, if the wind's blowing south to north, and you got this at the dam, well, the machine says, let it out.
Well,
there's a reason why we don't have
let's get that
depth.
clarified. There's no machine. This is only
Monitoring
it. The requirement of opening sluice gates, those decisions are still manually Andy's.
Okay, but the fact
Anybody
is
can
you're putting it
monitor.
in to use it.
Right.
I mean, why spend $1,000 and say, well, geez, let's wait and see if the wind quits blowing? I mean, I'd sooner spend $1,000 on the seeds where we're gonna vacate Waukegan. I'm looking at it realistically as a taxpayer now.
Oh, well,
All right.
and so am I. I'm
And
also a
I
taxpayer,
just don't
yeah.
see a benefit in my eyes. Now, I don't live on the lake, so I don't have what you have, okay?
Yeah,
But,
we
you
can
know,
get all that information right off the dam.
Well, and it's a question of, Andy can spend time doing that. I don't know what the cost is for him to hang his head over there. I don't know if he would be more efficiently used within his capacities in doing other things.
You're gonna come back with more information anyway.
And that's, I don't know where we're going down.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I only ask is for us to defer it, not us to come back with more information.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. Done on that one. Moving on to approval of code compliance abatement for lawn mowing request for proposal.
Yep.
So this is for basically blight situations?
Yes,
or-
yes.
Yep.
Wanted to be more formal with things. I did have the attorney review this. They did some suggestions to it for insurance and contract. I was provided some information that some of the past contractors maybe were not as timely and other issues were happening. So working with Bill, our code enforcement officer, we wanted to be a little bit more, I guess, in tune with those information, things that we need for insurance and other things to really get people on there for the code compliance, so.
What is the typical rate? Do you know what we paid last year to have it done? I mean, I'm just wondering if it's so low that the lawn cutters go, hey, I got a whole, subdivision, do I come and get it next week? Is it based on size, or is it?
It
Mike,
is, yes.
Is it based on the size of the lot?
Yes.
Okay. And what, do you have an idea what the minimum is?
It was like 75 to $100 usually.
Ooh.
The only
Can I
thing
borrow
I'd
your
add-
riding mower?
Geez,
Okay.
there is hope for a retiree.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
Motion by Dumont, second for Duff to, I guess, approve the RFP, huh?
Now publish it.
Great.
All those.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we need to vote, don't we? That's just for RFP, we don't need roll call. So that was all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right. Moving on to resolution approving West Nile Virus Fund expense reimbursement request under Oakland County West Nile Virus Program.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the reimbursement fund.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Malik. So how the heck does this work? Mike?
We're just approving it, and then once we get the bill, then we're just asking for to offset the cost, reimburse part of that. Which
Okay.
actually, we do have cans upstairs for residents.
Cans and the pucks.
Oh, that's right,
Pucks,
yeah.
Yeah, they're upstairs now, so if any
Cool.
resident wants to come in, we have them upstairs.
What's that for? Excuse me.
For the mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes.
Mosquito
Just
spray.
remember we had
Spray,
cutter repellent and.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, is this something you'll put on the internet to the people?
Yes.
Mike, on this abatement program, is Oakland County still coming out and doing mosquito trapping? They were at one point in time.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Okay.
These aren't big traps, this is just test traps. I know we looked into it because, as you heard, the young lady above you in the Oak Island meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's mosquitoes in the back of her home, which.
Okay.
I don't think that's a
Move
logical
the
thing.
mosquitoes.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries on that one. Wow, second call to public already.
Nice.
Moving right along.
Anybody in the audience that would like to talk to anything else? Okay. Seeing none, we'll bypass the second call and move on to resolution declaring May 11th as National Stamp Out Hunger Day. So we have a proclamation, I guess we can.
I would
Anybody
make
wants to
that
read it?
motion, Mr. President.
Okay, motion by Sienkiewicz, second by,
I'll second it.
second by Scott. And that's just, nice little resolutions regarding hunger.
Hopefully every resident received a little notice, just to put out a bag of non-perishable food items at your thing, and someone will come by and pick it up. We have a big notice on the front door out there for all the residents to take part in it, and municipalities across the Oakland County and Michigan and across the nation this is the main day that they do things.
And that'll be Saturday, May 11th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that was a motion. Yes, we got a motion on the table, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Resolution declaring May as Mental Health Month. Another resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. York, second by Duff. And we've got designated May 9th as National Children's Mental Health Awareness Day. So. It's right around the corner, too. So all in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries on. Public hearing for the budget for June 12th. So we need to set that as a public hearing. So we need a motion to set that as
So
a...
moved.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont to schedule June 12th as our budget public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Set topics for the May
Mr. President,
22nd.
quick question. Are we going to have a meeting after that with the, the council on the budget or before?
Well, that's setting up for the budget hearing, and then we'll have a council meeting
Afterwards.
after that, like we always did, right?
Okay, I thought so,
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure
Yep.
which one was first.
Yep, so we're gonna have May 22nd as our budget work session, so I guess that's, we officially had to set it, and I think it's been set. So, is there anything else we need to discuss that night? Not that the budget's gonna be enough.
Do we need a work session that night? For what?
Well, that's gonna be our budget work session,
Oh, okay, that's,
2 weeks from now.
yeah, the 22nd,
Just trying to think
right?
if there was anything
7
else on there
p.m. still.
besides that. What's that?
Still 7 p.m.
Yes. Okay, so we've set that topic. Moving on to item M, which is the Veterans Memorial Committee discussion that we were starting to lean into earlier. So, John, Mr. Scott, would you like to continue?
Yep, absolutely. And it's really just a discussion of procedure and process more than anything else. Mr. Condit knows that we have certain funds that have been gathered, and I don't know what the number is, Mike, something just a little over north of 12,000 at this point in time. And some of those funds are earmarked, one to pay for the illustration, I believe, through Carlisle Wortman that we've been looking at as far as the War Memorial. I don't know what the other, there was another set aside, was it for a flag, Michael, or?
We've already purchased a flag, Mr. Scott, from R&R Flagpole Company. We spent
Hasn't been delivered.
$2,500 for that.
Yeah.
That was out of the general fund. And that flag is not stored here. It's still on the grounds or in the possession of R&R pending
Okay.
whenever we want to have it deployed.
Well, I guess the process and procedure is, there were some questions on behalf of the subcommittee. If we look at our forward forecast, and we're as successful as we believe we're going to be, there are going to be excess funds. And those excess funds, the subcommittee feels, need to be certainly identified and set aside in some form of escrow account and managed for the maintenance of the War Memorial over term. We felt that that was a more logical thing to do, and then as improvements are done by the memorial or et cetera, is a question of how procedurally that should be done. And so the question of, much like Onwards and Upwards, who works jointly with the village, when the village kicks in 7,500 and they kick in 12,005 this year, I believe. Is that the number? Something like that.
If you're talking about fireworks.
It's fireworks, yeah. And then any excess collections or that go through Onwards and Upwards become not owned by them, but managed by them. For example, they do give away scholarships and et cetera. And I think there was I don't want to use the word concern, but there was a question of what would be logical to make sure that the same kind of propriety of funds and management of funds on behalf of those that contribute to the War Memorial are managed for the benefit of the War Memorial and don't move necessarily into just general funds. So it's really a question. I think they're looking at a 50c3. I don't know exactly how far that's going to go, but right now they're looking for some disbursements of monies per the approval of the subcommittee to start marketing.
Wasn't there an issue having a 501c3 within the village government before?
There was.
Well, there is. That's what I'm saying. It would
Yeah.
have to be a separate 50c3 to go through this money raise process. So I'm going to let them decide that. I'm just throwing that on the table that they're
Because
looking
when
at.
we originally started to look at it, it was a nightmare.
Yeah, no, well, again, this would be a separate corporation, a separate 50c3. It would be a non-taxable way for people to contribute money. It would have to be put together in either corporate or LLC form so that it's identified, filed, and audited. And then those dollars as raised would then be moved back into the village to help build and offset whatever funds the village might front. So that's more of a longer term thing. I hope you understand what they're thinking and what they're looking at. It's not going to be a village 50c3. It's going to be a.
In fact, I think our chief might have some comments.
Yeah.
along that line.
As it stands now, the tax laws, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leanne, the tax laws have been adjusted to where it's not quite as lucrative to have a 501c3 for tax purposes. Tax purposes or donations to those are only limited amount of deducted anymore. So there are very few things that actually are going to be allowed to be a deduction for a 501c3.
Yeah, that's correct.
For the amount of money that you're going to go through to set up a 501c3 for this particular project, I don't believe you're going to be, it's not going to be a benefit. It's going to be more of a hindrance because there's an awful lot of things you have to comply with every year to maintain your 501c3 status. And what will happen is you end up eating yourself with the costs as far as filings and things of that nature, I believe. Is that correct, Leanne?
It could be. I mean, yeah, there are.
I mean, when you're talking about a one-time project, basically, but the ongoing maintenance portion of it, I think those are going to be such small donations, I don't know that it's going to be beneficial for a 501c3. Coming from someone who's had a 501c3 for 12 years, it's quite lengthy, it's quite a task, and it can be costly to maintain and cumbersome to make sure you file all the correct paperwork.
Right.
So,
Right.
for something like this, I don't know with the accounting and things that you're going to need. I don't know if a 501c3 is the way to go. But that's my opinion. I just wanted to make sure you knew what you were getting into, having been there, done that.
Yeah, we've talked extensively with Onwards and Upwards as to what their cost is and et cetera.
Well,
Now, let me go back.
Is it a question that, I guess I'm kind of looking at, it sounds like might be a question within the subcommittee that they're not trusting that the village would be able to take care of those funds, even if it was a separate.
Well, I think there's a question
I would think we'd be able to
of
set it up,
alignment.
we'd be able to set it up so that it would be a separate line item, just like the
Yeah,
water
I
and
thought
sewer
that's what
fund
we
or
had,
something.
that we were gonna do already.
So you
Yeah,
can
and that's-
separate that out as a separate fund, Mike, I mean,
Yeah, we're already doing that. We have what is in essence an escrow account. I can document every single donation that's been made. I can tell you by who, for bricks, for shirts, for whatever. And we're going to continue to maintain those records unless, if we want us to offload them and put them in the hands of somebody else, we'll take them off the village's books. But they're in an agency account. You won't see it in the general fund. You don't see it in any other funds. It's essentially in the same family as bonds that we receive, builder bonds, those sorts of things.
Sure.
Any kind of we're holding money on someone else's behalf, not on our books in terms of a liability, but in an escrow situation.
Okay, understood. Well, we'll continue to let them explore that question.
I was
I
gonna
guess now, what, from this point forward, for what is on balance, it's just now simply the subcommittee approving the potential disbursement, for example, of the needed dollars for marketing, and then coming to you. Is that how you want us to process this next fundraising direction?
If there's requests for disbursement from that, I think it's at the discretion of the board. And
Okay.
once I have that, I think that's fine, that's enough. There was another point I wanted to raise too about the 501c3. Don't forget, on the other side of the coin, deductions for charitable giving and property taxes and so forth, given the changes in the tax laws, are now essentially moot. Nobody's going to hit the new standard deduction level unless it's a very substantial deduction. Or, there are a lot fewer people itemizing now than there were before.
Oh, yeah, absolutely know that, absolutely know that. Yeah, well, there's perception and there's reality, so we're exploring perception and reality right now together at the table, and I appreciate your conversation on it. You'll probably see some disbursement requests coming after the next subcommittee meeting, so. Excellent.
Okay, anything else? Don't believe we have any pending business. Update from the chief.
Now that I stuck my York peppermint patty in my mouth. Thank you again for this evening. I appreciate it. And as you can see, we have our new sign up on Glengarry. It is working very well. We're looking forward to having the one up on Benstein. Absolutely blown away with the amount of vehicle count for the week. I don't know if you saw that in there. It was kind of tucked up in a corner. 22,000 cars a week go down Glengarry. That's an incredible amount of traffic. And our lien audit we had with the state of Michigan, they were out yesterday. We've been working on this for a couple of months. It's a very big deal to us, and we passed very well. And everybody was excited about that, especially Sergeant Morosco. I tasked him with a lot of the ins and outs of that, and so we're very pleased with that. Again, looking forward to a very long summer if it ever gets here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer Condict.
Gentlemen, it's that time of year where, as is our custom, we present to you the beginning budget, the proposed budget, not for any discussion or consideration tonight, but if I can give you a few highlights, things that I'd like you to see or look at or be aware of. The idea is that in the interim, between now and our work session, we are going to have a meeting of the Park and Recreation Capital Group to determine what, if any, solid numbers can go into this budget. As of yet, there are none. We're also going to try and reconvene the old Audit Finance Committee, which hasn't met in several years, so that they can provide some insight. This board, remember, is made up of Brian Lindman and Ron Cumbo, assuming they're still interested. Bob Malik, Walter York, somebody else on council, John Scott, of course. Mike is there, Mike Smith, and then I am there as a non-voting sort of.
I'm the missing one.
You're what?
I'm the missing one.
Yeah, you're not on it.
Yes, I am.
You are?
On the finance committee?
I didn't think so.
Yeah, I didn't see you on there, I didn't, but.
Yes.
Yeah, Ed was on, I was off because I was a.
The last depiction of the
Did
boards
we?
and committees have you on it.
Oh, okay, I was going by, I was the.
We'll double check, but.
Okay, I thought it was.
Okay.
I did talk to Mr. Cumbo, by the way, Mike, and he's
Yeah.
on. He's going for it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, see, I was a
I've lost my contact
resident
information.
at that time.
Right.
So evidently we did change it.
You were on as a
Okay.
resident, probably.
Right, before.
Right.
Anyway, we'll double check that.
Okay.
So very briefly, I wrote you a little bit of a memo here describing where we're at in terms of the health of our fund balance. We've got 2 years now of declining fund balance, mostly due to our transfer to the local road fund for supplemental funds for the projects that we're doing. A couple of bits of good news, though, I think. First of all, our taxable value has now matched and eclipsed what it was at the maximum before or what it was before we had our issue with the drop, the 22% decline in residential property value. So that's good. A lot of that is due to Beechcrest. Beechcrest is now that it's fully built out and completely assessed at market value, whatever, is contributing $102,000 per year to our coffers.
What happened with the abatement?
Well, with the appeal, you mean?
Yeah,
The
the
MTT
appeal, yeah.
appeal? Unknown at this point.
Still unknown?
And that was only 2018. I assume now that it's fully built out, the numbers went way up, and so I assume they're going to appeal 2019 as well. Brian, you just never know. The decision could come tomorrow. It could come in 6 months or a year.
Okay.
Anyway, so good news on those fronts. Embellished state shared revenues, that's a good thing. And most states are in the same position. They're generating higher revenues from sales tax. The increase in gas and weight tax and auto registration fees is starting to kick in, so we're getting more revenue in our major and local street funds as well. I want you to look at where our fund balances have been in the general fund and the major and local street fund. We have that available there. We also have a page where with our taxable valuation going back to like 1981. And then this spreadsheet here, which is basically a summation of where we were at the end of 2018, where we are in the current budget, and where we will be with this expected budget. And again, in both years, fiscal 19, fiscal 20, we expect that we're going to be using some of our fund balance going forward. I want to outline, or at least highlight, and this will be the last thing I say, some of the capital items. We're assuming that the staffing levels are going to remain the same, so we're not increasing personnel costs in terms of hiring somebody else. But we have a number of capital items. The police department is looking for a new SUV. Mr. Stone is looking for a new truck, and by new truck, I don't mean a pickup truck, I mean $175,000 worth of truck. So that's something you need to keep on your radar screen for purposes of discussion. There are a number of capital items associated with improving the DPW building. Their floor is pretty heavily pitted, and we're trying to fix that. We're also going to try and fix the tiled area in their office. We're going to try and fix they have a locker room sort of bathroom area that could use some updating and those kinds of things. But then other than that, we've incorporated a couple of studies to be done in at the level of the Water Management Board, one for soil erosion, one for canal sedimentation. So again, at this point, I think we expect to have the sign paid for and expensed this fiscal year, the sign being the one at Miller Park. We're also looking at that Benstein pathway. Remember, that's one of the 4 projects that we have that are eligible for tri-party. Yes, sir. So there you have it in a nutshell. The only thing I don't know at this point in time is that I still don't have a good apportionment for what's going to be spent this fiscal year on our roads as opposed to what's going to be spent next year. We know the figure is somewhere around $690,000. At this point, at this writing, I've split it half and half. Who knows? The other thing is that, this is all in flux. I expect, and you expect, a lot of changes between now and after our meeting on the 22nd. And then when we reconvene again, we'll have an adopted budget going forward that, again, will show decline in fund balance, but, an identification. It looks like we're starting to identify some of our deep capital needs. And as usual, if there are any questions in the interim, if anybody wants to meet with me or Mike or both of us, feel free to call.
Great job.
Thank you, sir.
He always does a great job of putting all this stuff together.
A lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be calling you, Mike. It's my first time. I'm going to ask a lot of questions.
Starting with page 1, going forward.
He makes it so easy, too, Walt. So. Okay, Michael Smith.
Wanted to update you. The Walled Lake School bond proposal did pass. 69% voted yes, 31% voted no, approximately. Pretty low turnout, but it did pass yesterday. So thank to all the people who came out and voted. We do have, like you stated, the budget work session, and then we do need to get the negotiating committee together as well. Those who are on it, is Wednesday, 22nd, before the work session work. I don't know how much time you need, 6:30 is fine.
6:30, 6 o'clock?
As you want.
Ed?
The three of you. 6 or 6:30. It'd be a long night's workshop, so I didn't know.
Yeah,
negotiating.
I think an hour 6 would be enough.
I think that's
Fine with
fine
me.
too.
All right, 6 o'clock then.
Well, wait a minute, are we just talking about office staff?
And Chief Ellsworth.
Chief Ellsworth?
Yeah.
Should be fine.
It'll be more than enough time. I wonder if 6:30 would be enough.
Well, that's what.
Make it
Michael-
6.
6 to be safe.
6 to be
6:15 if
safe,
you
yeah,
want.
okay. And that'll be on the
6:15 if you
work
want.
session night, right?
I'm flexible.
The work session night?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
work
that's work
session
se-
night. That's why I
before
was
the work
asking
session.
how much,
Okay.
how early you wanted to. I know you think you said you had something.
I'll make it work.
Okay.
That's it.
Like,
You can come at 6:30 if you want.
I might. I have the Citizen Police Academy graduation that evening, and I also have another thing during the day, but that's not a big deal.
Well, can you make it like 6:30?
I can make it. I will, when it comes to my contract, I will do whatever.
Yeah, it's going to be to your benefit, I think.
I'm hoping so, Ed.
Yeah, you might want to,
I'm going to hold you to that. Yeah, no, I will.
Well, we can cover the other half of it earlier, so that works.
Small plan.
But what we'll do is we'll worry about them first and you last, so if you're a little late, we'll cover.
That works. The aerator lake pumps are here, I think, or.
They deliver them?
They were delivered,
They
yes.
were delivered, yes. Just want to let you know, DPW told me that. I was at a road commission for the Oakland County Strategic Plan meeting. Andy and I went to it with Commerce Township. It was a great meeting. I really pushed for trying to move up repaving of Benstein. Really, it was on their list, but a future, and I said, please, 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 let's talk about Benstein. So they said, you know, they wrote it down, and I said, we'll see, so we'll see where that's at. Also creating a pedestrian crosswalk officially with the push at South Commerce and Glengarry to try and come out and evaluate that and see where we're at with that, kind of push those up to advocate for Wolverine Lake. We talked about other sightline issues with Glengarry and Benstein. I think the trees, and they were talking about some of those. They're working with Commerce Township to have better sight lines with the roads. It was a good meeting to meet with all of them. Clearly, Commerce Township had a lot more issues than our village, but it was a great meeting with Andy and myself and Dave Scott and Christine Long and Ryan Berman was there as well. Which I wanted to tie into that. DPW did receive some snow plowing recommendations or proclamations, or whatever you want to call them, commendations from State Representative Ryan Berman. Just wanted to give them attaboys to the four gentlemen. I did have a great meeting with Zambelli. First time meeting with them. We met with them today. This morning. Yeah. So it was good with that. Moving forward with that, getting the plans and work. I already reached out to the state to get the permit for the fireworks, so hopefully we'll have that moving forward. And then if you need to review anything for insurance purposes or anything like that. Last thing, I guess I will be at the SEMCOG grant workshop on Monday and Tuesday, so hopefully we'll be there. I will be out of the office Monday and Tuesday, but I'll hopefully be getting, ascertaining a lot of information for grant for future stuff for next year. So that is kind of what's on my table next. So that's all I have.
Super, thank you. Council comments, we'll start with Malik.
I'd just like to thank the chief for the team he's put together in our police department. By what transpired this evening, I think you deserve a compliment on the people you have on that staff, so.
Amen.
I would also like to mention that.
Park and Rec meeting, May 20th, right here, 7 o'clock.
John?
Hey, congratulations, Chief. It was quite a conversation, and thank you, Council, for your patience on listening to some of the conversations that I laid on the table.
Okay, Ed? Walt?
Thanks for bringing your staff, the police, and that was great to get to meet everybody. And
Fine job, chief. I have two other comments. One, all the pictures that we had of here of the different council.
They're in the thing right now. We're going to be redoing it.
Could be redeployed.
Redeployed.
Yeah, I don't know if they necessarily have to be down here because there's between the windows and everything, there's minimal wall space, but it'd be nice to have them either in the other one or someplace, you know.
We have plans for them.
Good, okay. And the other thing is, I want to wish a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. And if you are blessed to still have your mother, please contact her. Make her be known that she's still important in your life. That's it.
And I guess I have nothing tonight, so.
Make
Good
a
meeting.
motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Sigley, second by Duff.
That was your, you beat me.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. That was a little light.